Hi, I'm Paul. We're doing an ACT reading practice test. 40 questions. This is a hard session to do, really, because you have to read it, and so if you're going to practice it, then essentially you're going to have to listen to me read it. Now, I thought, well, maybe I'll just pause the thing and let people read it, or encourage people to pause and read it. But it doesn't all fit on one page. You got to read it and scroll it. So anyway, there's going to be some reading going on. Before we start, let's talk about reading strategies. For most students, and definitely if you're trying to get a top score, it makes sense to read the passage before you try to answer the questions. When you're reading, focus on the big picture. Focus on trying to get kind of an organizational map of the passage in your mind. Don't focus on trying to, memorize things and details, because the passage is still going to be there when you try to answer the questions, and you can refer back to it. And for most of the questions, you will refer back to it. When you're answering the questions, read the questions. I don't think it's a bad idea to circle or underline key words or phrases in the questions as you're reading it. If you can, try to answer the question without looking at the answers. Don't spend a lot of time on this, but as you're reading it, just try to answer the question in your mind, and then critically assess the answers. Okay. You don't need to answer the questions in order. Some questions are easier than other questions. The questions are not in order of difficulty. Some questions are just short and sweet. That's a good place to start. Some questions refer to line numbers in the passage. Those are good to take early on. Some questions are verbose and difficult. Leave those till the end. You can guess on them if you have to. But definitely skip around and do what seem to be the easier questions first. If you do all four of the passages, you got 35 minutes. There's 4 passages. It's about 9 minutes per passage. So that's what you want to keep in mind. If you're now, this varies depending on what kind of a score you are trying to get. What college do you want to go to? What scores do they require, etc. Other strategies. Let's say you read 3 passages, and on one passage, you just go right to the questions. You can allow about 10 minutes per passage for the passages that you're going to read first. That'll leave you 5-6 minutes for the ones where you're going to go questions first. If you are going to do 3 of the passages and guess on the 4th passage, you can take a little more time. Maybe, let's see, you can't go 12 minutes. That takes all your time. You can go 11 minutes per passage. That'll still give you a little time to go through and guess on the 4th passage. If you know that you are not a strong reader, you can go right to the questions on every passage. That'll give you about a minute per question, not quite, a little bit less, but you'll have to try it and see which approach works best for you. Ideally, you would like to get to the point where you are able to read the passages and answer the questions. Let's look at the directions here. Several reading selections followed by questions. After you read a passage, determine the best answer to each question. Refer back to the passages as often as you need. Let's talk just briefly about how to read different types of passages. Okay, you're going to have prose fiction. You're going to have humanities, you're going to have social science, you'll have science. Prose fiction. I think it's a good idea to read the first paragraph pretty carefully, okay? Prose fiction. It's fiction, all right? Think of it like if you went to see a movie and you get there late and you've missed the first, 5-10 minutes, okay? Now you don't know what's going on. Okay, you don't know anything about the characters, the setting, the plot. It's going to be difficult to pick up. So, read the first paragraph carefully. Science and social science. Read the first paragraph carefully. After that, read topic sentences carefully. First sentence of each paragraph. Read the last paragraph carefully. That's usually where they tie everything together. And finally, humanities. If the humanities is a first-person passage, read it more like a prose fiction. If it's third person, read it more like science, social science. All right. Let's take a look at what we have here. Prose fiction, Imago. Changed my own oil for the first time in the summer of the 17-year locust. Really wasn't all that difficult, just dirty, vexing, and a little sad. I hear locusts, too, when I remember my father calling me out into the driveway to watch him work on his old Chevy Vega. Now mark this, because a kid your age should know what's happening under the hood. Nodding, I turned and tried to skate away on the mechanic's creeper. The casters caught on some loose wrenches. I skinned my knee. I never really took to cars or much of anything mechanical. Somehow it all seemed too artificial, and at school I found that I preferred bones to bolts, moth wings to air filters, and the vapors of ether and formaldehyde to that of gasoline. But I conceded, lying supine under the car with him. He raised a finger to show me the fuel and coolant lines as if pointing out two overlapping constellations. It was cozy underneath the car, heat still quivering off the engine block, the noxious, earthy odor of greased bolts, the cricket sounds of a socket wrench as it doubled back for another twist. I felt I was enwrapped by a cocoon where silk filaments had been swapped for drop-forged steel. This here's the drain plug. Mark it or you'll get a face full of hot oil. I didn't mark it. At the time, I was probably more concerned with marking the little sandy anthills rising through cracks in the cement and the tiny brown insects scuttling between globules of spilt petroleum. My father often said how proud he was of me, but I've always believed that he was disappointed when I chose to study ecology instead of, quote, working with my hands. I slid beneath the undercarriage and burnt my palm on an exhaust pipe. Dumb. I'd driven nearly 15 miles out of town, recalling the little excursions I'd take with him right before an oil change just to warm the lines and, quote, loosen up the gunk. He seemed to know instinctively by some tactile physic or olfactory sentience the moment when all fluids had flooded their various vessels and the car transformed from an ignited curio of interlocking iron to an engorged circulating body of whooshing vapors and caustic liquefactions. But I'd let the engine get too hot and could only bide the time until it was ready to be touched again. The grass against my neck was soft, but scratchy. I'd pulled off alongside a huge bean field, almost prepared for harvest, and the illusory silence that follows cutting a car's motor quickly came to underscore the high, relentless roar of locusts. I lay beneath the car, feeling like a larval locust, buried shallow in the soil, stiffly awaiting my brief interval above. Like an insect, I had to angle my wrists and elbows in order to maneuver the tools. I glanced around at all the tubes and mechanisms my father had once identified for me. Things seemed much bigger back then. I whispered their names, deciphering the engine like a poem in a half-remembered language. The locusts were so loud I expected they would saw themselves in two. The 17-year locusts, of course, aren't true locusts. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. Never plagued the pharaohs of Egypt, and for all the millions in their swarms would scarcely harm the crops beside me. They're strange creatures. Underground, they while away 68 seasons, indolently metamorphosing. And their emergence is twofold, once from the soil and then from their own skin. The second is the greater struggle, but necessary for survival. Nonetheless, they unfold their wings, they learn to fly, and not much later, they die. On the drive back, I looked down beside me at the several plastic jugs of fetid oil and wondered how many it would take to gather up all the lifeless locusts from the bean field in a few days. I washed my hands. From the kitchen window, I could see my car parked askew in the blistering black driveway, the green panels glinting like a beetle's carapace. The hot water began to sting the skin across my palm and started to peel. All right. Let's do some questions. The author's main focus in the passage. Main focus. Let me get a pen here. Okay. So as we go through the questions, the author's main focus in the passage. All right. Usually in these things, you'll get things that were mentioned in the passage, but were not the main focus of the passage. Provide instructions for properly servicing an automobile. No. Discuss the life cycle of locusts. No. Share a personal anecdote about childhood. Nah, probably not. Contemplate life's transitions. Yeah, I would say so. A boy growing up, transitions, also the transitions of the locusts. So that is going to be best answer. As used in line 16, the word conceited most nearly means, okay, good. So go to line 16. Okay, here it is. But I conceded. Okay. Okay, so he's not interested. He's not interested in cars. But he conceded, well, conceded does mean admitted, but not in this context. Same thing with this. I yielded or I capitulated. That is that is close. I think capitulated is actually a little bit too strong, and yielded is probably the best choice. So let's go with that. Okay. It does say we can see an explanation. What is the explanation? Yielded strikes the right balance. It's not D because this would imply that the narrator was forced to help his dad. No, I didn't see it that way. I just saw it capitulated as meaning like I just thought it was too strong. Surrender. It's a close choice. But, okay. Next. In the passage, the narrator's use of biological references is best described as scholarly and objective. No, it's not a scholarly essay. So let's get rid of that. Misinformed and unnecessary. No. Worldly and grim. No. There's only one left. Meditative and passionate. Metaphorically, the speaker's peeling palm refers most significantly to, well, metaphorically, okay, metaphorically, and this is what it literally refers to, not metaphorically, his father's desire for him to work with his hands. No, I don't see that. His struggle to fully enter adulthood. Yeah, it's not bad. The dangers of his incautious lifestyle. No, I mean, there's nothing that says he has an incautious lifestyle. His struggle to fully enter adulthood, I mean, okay, it's that's a stretch, but it's really the only answer that works. So let's go with it. Given that imago is both a word used to describe the last metamorphic phase of an insect's life cycle and one used by psychologists to describe the idealized concept of a parent that people form in childhood. I have never heard that one. The passage's title is appropriate for which of the following reasons? One, the narrator is gradually becoming independent. Yes. Two, the narrator's father had a passion for insect study. Absolutely not. The narrator views his father as resembling a locust. Boy, these are crazy. I mean, okay, so the only one that makes sense here is this one. The speaker's overall opinion of his father is best described as, let's see, tender, maybe, amazed, I wouldn't say that, disgruntled, wouldn't say that, measured, well, we're down to two. Okay, let's think about this a little bit. I'm going to go back and kind of scan a little bit here. All right, so his father is teaching him lessons about what he knows. The father does say that he is proud of the boy, although the son suspects that, he was a little disappointed in some ways also. He has a compliment about his father's instinctive feel for mechanical objects, cars. Okay. He's talking about poetry and, it's close. It's close. I wish the answers wouldn't be this close. I mean, like the last answer, every answer but one was absurd. This one is close. Let's go with A. B and D sounds just a little bit too neutral. A little bit too neutral. All right, and actually, let's see what their explanation of that is. I taught him important lessons about car maintenance, respects his dad's advice, tries to remember his father's lessons. Dad said he was proud of him. Tenderness. B and C are out. We did eliminate those. And D is too neutral. Okay, it's a close call, but there's the reasoning. As used in line 67, the word greater most nearly means. All right, let's find line 67. All right, there it is. Okay, so the emergence is twofold of locusts, one from their own skin. Oh, I see, one from the ground, one from their own skin. The second is the greater struggle. More dangerous? No. Better? No. Older? No. All right, well, this one's a little bit easier. More challenging. The speaker's preoccupation with anthills during his father's lessons indicate the speaker does not respect his father. No. Differing interests, possibly. Ants dislike petroleum-based. Oh my gosh. Speaker cannot hear his father. No, there's nothing in there that says the speaker can't hear his father. So it reflects the differing interests of the speaker and his father. Yeah, that's a key. That's a key point in the passage. So we'll go with B. Okay. B. The ways that the narrator and his father approach car repairs can best be described. Whoa, what the heck happened there? Okay, resume. Okay, get rid of that. Whoa. Oh, okay, I see. The way that the narrator and his father approach car repairs can best be described as which of the following for the narrator and father, respectively. All right, so let's try to eliminate some of these. Narrator. Was the narrator terrified? No. Was he melancholy? I wouldn't say so. I mean, skillful is good for the father, but not. I don't think melancholy. Innate is actually kind of close for the father, but playful, that is not, the father. And I don't think the son was pessimistic either. The son, I would say, was distracted, and the father was intuitive, which is D. All right, let's go with that. Whoa, what happened? Oh, I think I didn't show the answer. Show the answer. Okay. Which of the following events in the passage occurred last chronologically? Okay. Well, the narrator's father identified the tubes and mechanisms in the car. That was actually happening fairly early on, so we're going to take that out. B sounds like the right answer, but yeah, they happened in this order, actually. The narrator drives out of town to loosen up the engine gunk. The engine gets too hot, and then the narrator burns his hand, and that's the last event chronologically, so we'll go with B. No. I gotta look at the answer. Let's go back to previous. Show answer B. Okay. Next, the evolution of Halloween. All right, Halloween in the United States is a curious celebration. Like many American holidays, its traditions derive from a broad spectrum of cultures. Okay, you know what? Let me kind of do this and just kind of, as I'm going through here, traditions derive from a broad spectrum of cultures that have over time fused together in the proverbial melting pot to form one of the oldest and unique holidays widely celebrated in our country today. And now I just realized that I can't write and scroll at the same time. So we're going to have to skip the underlining. All right, the origins are slightly more difficult to trace than those of other holidays. Unlike Christmas, Passover, Thanksgiving, Independence Day, Halloween's roots are not commemorative, patriotic, or particularly religious, yet it is celebrated nationally every year. Most historians recognize is that Celtic or Celtic? Celtic? I think it's Celtic festival of salmon as the earliest known ancestor of Halloween. Beginning more than 2,000 years ago and held annually on October 31st, salmon marked the end of the year for the people inhabiting what is now northern France and was celebrated with feasting, bonfires, wearing of animal costumes, and masks. But as salmon marked not only the end of the year, but also the land's transition from the warm vitality of summer to the death-like dormancy of winter, it also featured some familiar, more macabre overtones. The Celts believed that on salmon, the spirits of the dead returned to earth to change the weather and destroy crops. This emphasis on seasonal transformations has led some to suspect that salmon, as well as its unknown predecessors, was fundamentally an end-of-harvest holiday and may date back to the very dawn of agriculture. By the 1st century AD, the Roman Empire controlled most of the Celtic territories, and the rituals and beliefs of salmon slowly Celtic territories? I don't think that's right. I don't know. Slowly became interwoven with the Roman holiday of Feralia, a day in late October on which Romans honored the passing of the dead. Conquest by the Romans also resulted in the spreading and standardization of the festival throughout much of Europe, but the name Halloween itself didn't begin to emerge until the 9th century, when the Catholic Church designated November 1st as All Saints' Day and the night prior, the Night of Salmon, as All Hallows' Eve. Roughly 200 years afterward, the Church added All Souls' Day to the festivities, which commemorated the dead on November 2nd and was celebrated in a manner similar to salmon, with parades, bonfires, and the donning of saint, angel, and demon costumes. The proximity of the dates and the similarity of rituals have led many to believe that the 3-day Hallowmas festival was an attempt by the Church to absorb the pre-Christian traditions of salmon and Feralia into a Catholic-sanctioned holiday. The next great steps in Halloween's evolution occurred in the American colonies, specifically in the South. While staunchly Protestant New Englanders had more or less abandoned the tradition in Maryland and Virginia, Halloween began to blend with several Native American harvest celebrations, thus reassuming some of its original significance. Native American harvest iconography remains one of the distinguishing features of Halloween in the U.S. and can be observed in the decorative squash, pumpkins, and the corn shocks used to adorn front porches. The carving of pumpkins into jack-o'-lanterns, however, most likely didn't begin until the mid-19th century, when the potato famine drove millions out of Ireland and into the U.S. Many of these Irish immigrants still strongly identified with their ancient Celtic heritage, and in some cases had managed to preserve and cultivate its traditions. Some, in fact, still referred to Halloween as Oiche Samna, Gaelic for the Night of Salmon. In Ireland, they had developed a tradition in which faces were carved into festival lanterns made from either beets or turnips to represent the heads of wandering souls. It is assumed that, finding turnips and beets more scarce in America, Irish immigrants began instead to carve their lanterns from the already Halloween-related pumpkin. Not surprisingly, the most iconic of American Halloween rituals, trick-or-treating, is also among the most elusive in terms of its origin. Some claim that it evolved from Irish salmon practices in which people dressed as marauding spirits were invited inside for food in exchange for sparing the house and property. Others have suggested it derived from the All Souls era of the holiday, when people dressed as saints went door to door begging for soul cakes, while those dressed as demons vandalized homes and caused mischief. It's probable, however, that trick-or-treating as we know it today did not begin until the 1930s. During the Depression era, going door to door for a small, inexpensive treat became a way for entire communities to participate in a Halloween celebration without the costly investment of a parade or party, wherever its origins may lie. By the 1950s, Halloween and trick-or-treating had become a secularized, nationwide phenomenon, and Halloween remains our culture's strangest, most fascinating, one of our culture's strangest, most fascinating, and quintessentially American holidays. Okay. Based on the the first paragraph, American interpretations of holidays have a general tendency to let's take a look. Like many American holidays, it comes from a broad spectrum of cultures. Let's see if that'll work. Based on the first, celebrate the unique cultural contributions of immigrant groups independently. No, independently is not what we're looking for. We're looking for, where they're blended into the melting pot. Maintain consistency with ancient traditions. No, I don't think so. Blend different traditions together to form a distinctive celebration. Yes, that is, that's what it says here. Different traditions derived from a broad spectrum of cultures, fused together. Yeah, I don't think we can do any better than C. Okay. Based on lines 9 to 13, in another country culturally similar to the United States of America, a holiday themed and rooted in which of the following would likely not be found? Well, okay, that's not a great question, but really they're asking about the United States, but they're hypothesizing another country culturally similar to the United States. So let's just say, basically in the United States, a holiday themed in which of the following would likely not be found. So what do we have here in 9 to 13? We do have holidays based on national identity. Here's one right here. Remembrance. I guess remembrance. Thanksgiving, I guess, could be remembrance, but we have, Independence Day is also remembrance, Memorial Day, and then religion. We don't really have, we really don't have a holiday rooted in feasting, although you could say Thanksgiving, and I guess, maybe even Christmas. But that's really not the basis of these holidays. Christmas is a religious holiday, and Thanksgiving is really based on remembrance and history and national identity. It's not based on feasting. Maybe 4th of July. No, even 4th of July is not based on feasting. We can't, it's got to be feasting. I forgot to show the answer. All right. Okay. It can reasonably be inferred that if the author were to write about the origins of another major American holiday, the viewpoint would likely be more blank than the author's viewpoint about the origins of Halloween in the passage. All right, so before looking at the answers, let's think about that. I mean, the main thing about this passage is that Halloween, it's like, well, it's the origins are sort of uncertain. It's a curious celebration. Its origins are more difficult to trace, blah, blah, blah. It came from here, it came from there, it came from, wherever. So it would probably be more definitive, which is A. Okay. Good. Next, based on the passage, which of the following holidays has had the least influence? All right, well, a couple of these were mentioned a lot. It starts out talking about salmon, so we're going to say, since we're looking at what had the least influence, where's my pen here? We're looking at what had the least influence. It wasn't this, and it wasn't this. So now we're down to Feralia and All Saints' Day. Now, Feralia is mentioned. Oh, that's right, I can't scroll it. Okay, so we're down to B and C. Okay, so now we have the Roman holiday of Feralia, honoring the passing of the dead. Now, it's just mentioned that one time. So, okay, that's a possible answer. But here's the thing. That's a close one. Feralia is just, it's mentioned and then it's gone. But try to get the pen back here. What is the other one? All Saints' Day. Okay, All Saints' Day. Well, All Saints' Day is November 1st. But the prior night was All Hallows Eve. The prior night, not All Saints' Day. All Saints' Day is not Halloween. Okay, so I'm going to say it's All Saints' Day, because All Saints' Day is really only significant because it's the day after All Hallows Eve. Now, All Hallows Eve is a Halloween thing, but All Saints' Day is not a All Saints' Day is not a Halloween thing. Okay. According to lines 61 to 75, ritual of pumpkin carving was primarily, well, let's go to 61 to 75, but I think I remember this. All right, 61 to 75, okay. Dexter squash pumpkins, corn shocks. Where is line 75? Okay. Finding turnips and beets. Where's the, oh, here we go. Finding turnips and beets more scarce in America. They decided to carve lanterns from a pumpkin. Right, so what do we have here? A new practice. It's not a new practice. It's an imported practice. A way of preserving a culture's tradition by using a more readily available medium. That sounds like a very good answer. Cobb celebration unique to modern, no, it's not unique to modern American culture. Method of showing honor and respect to deceased ancestors. I don't see where it says that in there anywhere. So, let's take that out as well. And what we have left is B. The passage suggests that a cultural similarity between the United States and the Roman Empire. Sorry, I think I got cut off there for a second. Similarity between United States and Roman Empire. Well, let's go back to where they're talking about the Roman Empire. Roman Empire. Okay, so salmon became interwoven with Feralia, spreading and standardizing throughout Europe. So, okay, let's see what we've got here. An inclination to assimilate cultural practices of their new countrymen. Yeah, that's really the whole point of the passage, is how cultural practices of other cultures were assimilated. Desire to conquer vast tracts of land. No, that's not what it's about. Aspiration to impose their cultural viewpoints on subjugated people. No, that's not what it's about. Emphasis on maintaining culturally homogeneous, that means culturally the same, nationalistic holidays. That's wrong. So we got to go with A. That's really what the whole passage is about, is how cultural practices of multiple cultures were assimilated in the process of giving us Halloween as we know it today. As it's used in line 50, the term sanctioned most nearly means, or is 50? Okay, date similarity, many believe authority house would attempt by the church to absorb the pre-Christian celebrations of Salmon and Feralia into a Catholic sanctioned holiday. Catholic approved. So what do we have? Authorized? Authorized is good. Prohibited, conjoined, engaged. I'm not really tempted at all to select any of those. So let's go with A. Which the following is specifically mentioned as a Native American contribution to the evolution of Halloween in the United States. All right. Well, it's I thought I had a pen here. Well, there it is. Yeah, well, it's not this. That's Irish. Native American trick-or-treating, no. Jack-o'-lantern carvings or okay, yeah, I keep forgetting. I cannot scroll and write. So anyway, Native American. Oh, there it is. Well, that's okay. So it's right. I got to scroll to the right place and then start writing things. It's right here. Native American harvest iconography. So let's go with that. specifically mentioned. Okay, got it. The author uses lines 87 to 91 to suggest that a likely rationale for trick-or-treating during the Depression era may have been, well, it was economic necessity, right? I remember talking about, well, you could, exchange a gift, but you don't have to shell out for a parade or a party or something like that. During the Depression era, am I on the right line here? Yes. Going door to door became a way for communities to participate without the costly investment of a parade or party. So it's going to be economic necessity. And then just click that. Okay. The overall purpose of the essay is to, well, before looking at the answers, I'm going to say that the overall purpose is to show how, maybe how Halloween is different from some other holidays in that it is a combination of, well, I guess that it's a result of cultural assimilation. So let's see. Show how a particular celebration is different from many other holidays. It's not bad. It's a little bit vague, but I don't want to throw it out just yet. Demonstrate how large organized religion and smaller cult beliefs can be synthesized. No. Varied influence make for a superior holiday. Well, it doesn't say anywhere that it's a superior holiday. Let's take that out. Explain how a unique holiday came to be due to the diverse contributions from many groups. Yeah, I think that's a possibility. Let's compare that. What is A again? Show how a particular celebration is different from many other holidays. Okay. D is better than A because D is more specific than A. I mean, A is right. It's different in that many holidays. We know what they are. We know what the 4th of July is. We know what Thanksgiving is for. We know what Christmas is for. But we've got to go with D on this one. Okay. Now we've got a new passage. Humanities, throwing pots. I suppose it's the tradition itself, the ritual, that has always drawn me back to ceramics. Years ago when I was a student in Brussels, I worked in oils and watercolors. At that time, the prevailing consensus among the academic establishment was still that, quote, serious art was either made to hang stagnant on the walls of drafty European museums, or else it was too large and strange to be indoors at all. I categorically reject the notion that artistic pottery is for display purposes only. That is not pottery. It is sculpture, and it has no place in my studio. Now, actually, looking over here, I can see that the question is about the first paragraph, so we could probably go ahead and try to answer it now. First paragraph suggests that the academic establishment would not classify which of the following as a piece of serious art. A tile design in a renowned art museum. No. The author is saying that, yeah, you hang something in a museum, that's art. So we'll take this off. Let me scratch that much of it. A portrait of men and women at work found in a collection of murals. No. that would be fine. A landscape painting. No, landscape painting is good. What is this? A large outdoor sculpted artistic slide integrated into a children's playground. No, that would not be serious art, according to the academic establishment. This is not serious art. It's not in a museum. What are they saying? Serious art is supposed to hang on the wall of a museum, or it was too large and strange to be indoors. That's weird. Okay, I guess we're gonna have to go with this, where someone is considering artistic pottery to be for display purposes only. All right, that something that actually has a practical use would not be considered art. So let's go with A. Oh, wait. I can't do next. No, I don't want to do next. I want to show the answer. Okay. All right, good. Now we can go back to the reading. All right. To give oneself over to the ritual is something special. I wake up in the morning as potters have for thousands of years. I rub my eyes, shuffle to the wheel, and begin making vessels, practical things to hold food, water, flowers, wine. Potters craft items of beauty in form and function, and if their works of art are used as form dictates they must, then they are ephemeral. Eventually they'll break. The potter's labors will begin anew. It's like a good handmade loaf of bread. Everyone knows the pleasures of fresh artisanal bread, but by the second morning, the baker must start over again, the previous day's loaves having turned to stone. There's something so elemental about it, so pure. Making pottery, putting my hands to a lump of clay and creating something beautiful, something of use, allows me to participate in a ritual that spans the whole of human civilization. In ancient Greece, Athena was the patron goddess of the potters, but I think Ganymede, the lowly cupbearer, may have been more appropriate. All right, let's take a look at number 2 here, because I think that we've read enough to. I think that we've read enough here to possibly answer this. It can reasonably be inferred that the narrator would be bothered if his artistic creations lacked. Do we want to say permanence? No. He's comparing a potter's labors to like a loaf of bread. Does a loaf of bread have permanence? No. Does a piece of pottery have permanence? Well, I mean, not necessarily, you drop it and break it. So we're going to go no on permanent. Respect from artistic critics, no. He doesn't seem to really care about respect from artistic critics. He says I don't know if it's a he or not, but the author says Athena was the patron goddess of the potters, but I think Ganymede, the lowly cupbearer, may have been more appropriate. He wants to make, he or she wants to make something useful. Okay, so let's go with C. Right? Minus 19 to 20. Did we get to 19 and 20 yet? Yes, we did. Okay, so we can actually answer this one, I think, as well. The author primarily uses the example in 19 and 20 in order to provide an analogy that demonstrates the sensory similarities that are found when someone enjoys ceramics and fresh bread. I don't think so. I don't know what the sensory similarities would be there. Illustrate how the characteristics of bread, particularly its fleeting quality, are what he finds so satisfying about ceramics. Yes. In fact, it says something about that, doesn't it? I guess it doesn't say fleeting quality, but it's like, yeah, it's like a good handmade loaf of bread. Everybody loves it, but by the next day, you've got to do it again. It is fleeting. Fleeting. Shows how as time goes by, both bread and ceramics take on harder textures. No. Okay, I got to turn that off so I can scroll it. What is D? Provide a contrast between bread and ceramics. No, actually, he is not finding a contrast. He is making a comparison, showing how a way in which they're similar. The fleeting quality. Oops. Gotta go down here. Okay. Discussion of Athena. Wait a minute. Whoa. Okay. Yeah, we've actually already read this too. Discussion of Athena and Ganymede in lines 27 to 29 serves to make the point that it would have been more sensible for the ancient Greeks to use a human rather than a goddess in reference to ceramics. No, I don't think so. I don't even know if Ganymede is human. The narrator believes that the historical record about the true patron deity is inaccurate. No, it doesn't say that. Since ceramics do not generally have appealing visual qualities, a less visually appealing deity, I really don't know anything about the relative visual appeal of Athena and Ganymede. Given the more practical applications of ceramics, a less pretentious choice may have been more fitting. Yes, that is the correct answer. Okay. All right, we got to read on here. There is more to it, of course. There is the craft of ceramics, the smattering of deft skills and techniques shared by all who practice pottery. And then there is the art. This is where I tend to falter, where my old pretensions seep through to complicate that tactile serenity I procure from the wheel. It's inevitable. Artistic pottery exists simultaneously in two planes, one practical, one wholly impractical, but I rest easier at the end of the day after scrubbing the clay from beneath my nails, because I believe the dual life of this profession can be a vehicle for dialogue as well as the source of my perpetual crisis of identity. All right, now we are on to 42. I think of Annie Dillard's words in her lovely meditation on writer's own set of unique vocational foibles and afflictions. The materiality of the writer's life cannot be exaggerated. If you like metaphysics, throw pots. Okay. If only it were that simple. And do we have to read all the way to 62 for this? Throwing a pot is making a pot. So that's, it doesn't mean heaving a pot that's just, it's just what making a pot is called, throwing a pot. So let's go making a pot. Show answer. Okay. Materiality of the writer's life. You like metaphysics, throw pots. Okay, but I can think of no other occasions in my life when I felt more certain of a thing's existence than when it begins to take shape in my hands. To throw a pot is to position oneself at the fixed point of artifice in motion and experience the congress of action and stasis. When swinging through the position perpendicular to the ground, the net force acting on a pendulum is zero. That is the artistic moment. I also think of the objective correlative, its falseness. The assimilants of my ceramics, earth for clay, water for slurry, fire for the kiln, are as much the artist as I am, perhaps more so. No vision of mine is ever fully manifested in the finished product. Rather, from the kiln will emerge a funhouse mirror reflection of my idea, a strange kin, a doppelganger of the initial inspiration, and for its difference and imperfection, it is all the more beautiful. Let me add at this point, I have no idea what this person is talking about. And that may be the case when you go through ACT reading passages. Just focus on answering the questions. You have the question in front of you. You have the material in front of you. So trying to cultivate a deep understanding of the passage is not the way to go. Okay. Let's see. Where did we leave off? Okay, yes. Critics, believing apparently, like the naturalists of the 19th century, that to name something is to control it, have taken it upon themselves to categorize the variances of my work with their inscrutable multitude of isms. But I relinquished my control and my interest in nomenclature long ago. My work is informed by objects, not ideas, and if any one culture's tradition has affected the trajectory of my art, it is the Anasazi, the ancient ones. And even so, it is not the design of their great pottery that has influenced me, but its spirit. Their clay ceramics of extraordinary intricacy and unimaginable antiquity have survived these several thousand years in spite of the world, not because of it. Okay. In the narrator's view, each of the following could likely be the act of a scholar who followed the same intellectual paradigm as 19th century naturalist critics, except, so which one doesn't fit? So the naturalists believe that to name something is to control it. And so they want to categorize things with isms, names, basically. Okay. What would someone who followed this model do? Replace vague names for weather phenomena with extremely precise labels. Yeah, I think they would do that. They want to label the phenomena. Naming the people within a country that he or she wishes would submit to government oversight. It's a little bit odd. I'm going to put a hold on that one. Creating terms to describe rapid societal changes in gender and racial relations. Yes, they want to name things and control them. So creating terms, yes. Generating terminology to aid in chemists' understanding of molecular interactions. Is that something that they would do? It's a little bit different in that they're not naming things, are they? Generating terminology to aid in the understanding of molecular interactions. It's possible. What is the, okay, let me look at B again. Naming the people within a country that they wish would submit to government oversight. I don't like that part. Naming people that they wish would submit to government oversight. On the other hand, naming, well, a process is different than naming a thing, but we have names for weather phenomena. That actually makes sense. Generating terminology. That's a close call. It's a close call. I'm going to say that because this generating terminology is so close to what they're talking about here, naming something, generating terminology, naming the people with this whole thing about government oversight sounds, it sounds a little spooky, and I don't think it's quite right. So I'm going to go B, but I'd like to see an explanation of it. All right. The intellectual paradigm is described as desiring to name things. A, C, and D would all involve such naming, but B would not involve the creation of terminology, but simply a declaration of who should be subject to government oversight. Let me read that again. Naming the people within a country that he or she wishes. Okay. It's a close call. Next question. The author uses lines 52 to 55 to suggest that the combination of what two factors are important in the creation of art. Let's go to 52 and 55. And 51, 2 through 5. 52. When swinging through the position perpendicular to, okay. 55, 54, 53, 52. The Congress of Action and Stasis. All right. Well, you know what? If you want to be that way about it, action and stasis is right here. Action and stasis, which is inaction. So I don't think the other ones work. Force, swinging, gravitation, stillness, parallel and perpendicular motions. I don't think any of those are essential to the creation of art. So let's go action and inaction. Okay. Next. As the term is used in line 68, informed most nearly means. Where is line 68? informed. Okay, right here. My work is informed by objects, not ideas. My work is, well, all right, learned? No. Educated? No. Named? No. Influenced? Yes. I mean, informed could mean, you know, something like educated, I don't know. But my work is influenced by objects, not ideas. Okay, that's what I'm going to go with. But actually, it's kind of a strange question. Let me see the explanation for that. Influence is the only word that makes sense in context. It's not B or C. The narrator has already established artistic skill. Objects serve to inspire the artist rather than to educate or help him learn. It is not D because the surrounding context implies that the narrator has no interest in naming and categorizing art. Okay. Let's see. Metaphysics is the branch of philosophy that deals with the nature of reality, mind, and matter. Which of the following quotations from the passage would most support the idea that ceramics is closely related to metaphysics? All right. Yeah. Metaphysics, the nature of reality, mind, and matter, the nature of existence. Okay. So you want to go A, if only it were that simple. I don't, no, I don't think so. That really, there's nothing metaphysical about that. This looks pretty good, actually. To give oneself over to the ritual, I wake up in the morning. No, nothing metaphysical about that. There is the craft of ceramics, the deft skills and techniques shared by those who practice pottery, and then there is the art. I don't think so. I think this is what we're talking about here is, I mean, the way they phrase it is, how do they phrase it? Metaphysics is the nature of reality, mind, and matter, the nature of existence. So I think we got to go B on that one. Okay. I'm not sure my explanation was perfect there. What do they say here? The narrator is contemplating the nature of the pot's existence. It's not A. Yeah, A was kind of weird. It's not C. That's more on the ritual, and it is not D because D focuses on artistry and skill. Okay, they make it sound so simple in these explanations. Next question. The overall purpose of the essay can best be described as an exploration of the thought, of the motives and thought processes of an artist. It's not bad. An analysis of trends in artistic theory. No. It's much more personal than that. A comparison of ceramics to other art forms. No, I don't think so. I mean, there's a brief mention of other art forms in the first paragraph. But that's not the overall purpose of the essay. autobiographical discussion of how a particular work was created. No, there's no discussion of a particular work. So A is a really good answer on this one. Let's see, A. Okay. And now we have one more passage. Color sensitivity. We actually have two passages, passage A and passage B. Okay. Passage A. Contrary to popular belief, dogs are not entirely colorblind. Like humans, the canine retina consists of two types of pigment containing photoreceptors. Rod cells, which specialize in detecting contrast and motion, and cone cells, which enable animals to perceive color. Now, if I could write and scroll at the same time, I would underline those: rod cells, contrast and motion; cone cells, color. It seems important. Cone cells, which are particularly abundant in the fovea, that is the part of the eye which allows us to see sharp, centralized images, can be further subdivided based on the pigment protein that they contain complexes. It is the unique, and again, there's words here that you may not know, I don't know. Don't worry about it. This is not a science test, and you are not really, you're not expected to have a deep understanding of scientific terms and concepts, particularly in the reading section, or even in the science section for that matter. So some of these you can just kind of gloss over. Just open your eyes a little wider and let the words pour in there. Okay, now where did we leave off? Okay, the cone cells can be further subdivided. Unique physiochemical properties of these complexes or photopsins that determine the particular wavelength of electromagnetic radiation to which each cone cell will be most responsive. A human cone cell, for example, contains one of three photopsins: sinolabe, chlorolabe, erythrolabe, which detect blue, green, or red. Blue, green, or red. Now that I would probably make a note of. The overlap of ranges in wavelength to which these photopsins are sensitive is largely responsible for our ability to discern the so-called additive secondary colors, which include yellow, magenta, and cyan. Most likely, the persistent myth that dogs are colorblind stems from the fact that the canine cone cells produce both cyanolabe and chlorolabe, but lack the higher wavelength photopsin needed to detect red light. Furthermore, owing to the principles of additive color, an absence of erythrolabe, which I guess that's the red light, right, indicates that dogs are not only unable to perceive red, but they can't perceive yellow or magenta. Thus, the difference of a single photopsin subtype has striking implications for both the quality and diversity of a species' color vision. In the case of canines, evolutionary scientists suggest that the ancestors of domestic dogs likely possessed erythrolabe at some point in the past, but this photopsin was made obsolete by the same selective pressure that favored the refinement of the canine olfactory system. To illustrate, the human nose contains roughly 5 million smell receptors. A bloodhound has nearly 60 times this many. All right, so we finished. I see the question here. The first question is about passage A, which we just read, so maybe we can tackle this one. The narrator of passage A most strongly suggests that most people believe that dogs are, actually, it says it right up here, contrary to popular belief, dogs are not entirely colorblind. So most people believe that dogs are entirely colorblind. Okay. Based on the information in the passage, for an animal to have vision that is more color sensitive than either dogs or humans, what is the minimum number of photopsins the animal would need to have. Okay, I remember that one. It's just, it corresponds to like colors. So dogs have 2, humans have 3. You want to have more than dogs or humans, you're going to need to have at least 4. All right. Based on 19 to 35. Did we read that? Yeah, we did. It's a lot. What can reasonably be inferred about the environment in which the ancestors of domestic dogs that possessed erythrolabe lived compared to the present day environment? Okay, yeah. So at the end, it's saying, what is scientists suggest that domestic dogs likely possessed erythrolabe? Okay, so they likely had the same visual tools as humans, but there was some kind of evolutionary pressure that says, you know what, the olfactory system, sense of smell, is more important. So let's see what we have here. The environment in which the ancestors lived. It favored visual sensitivity. That makes sense. It favored the refinement of all animal sensory systems. No, there's nothing in there except sight and smell. It had more predatory threats to dogs. No, didn't say that. It discouraged the need for increased auditory perceptions. Well, again, there's nothing in there about auditory perceptions. So, I mean, A makes sense. Let's go with it. Next. Okay, now we got to get to passage B. All right. Passage B. To say that the entire rainbow is derived from the ability of our retinas to detect just 3 colors of light will surprise a precious few. You know, I wouldn't agree with that. Perhaps owing to an intrinsic interest in the way that we as people experience the visual world, the trichromacy of cone cells in the human eye has become fairly common knowledge. I just don't really, I don't know, maybe because it never comes up, but I don't think that most people that I encounter are experts on the trichromacy of cone cells. Anyway, however impressed as we may be with the efficiency and efficacy of our 3 principal visual pigments, in reality, the capacity of our visual system to perceive color is shockingly primitive in comparison to those found elsewhere in the animal kingdom. Not surprisingly, eyes with 4 and 5 discrete visual pigments, described as tetrachromacy and pentachromacy, respectively, are far more common among species that rely heavily on their eyesight for both survival and reproduction. Such systems allow these animals to experience a color spectrum markedly more rich and complex than the one to which we as humans are biochemically limited. Birds, for example, possess highly sophisticated visual systems, including a cone-to-rod ratio of 85 to 1. The ratio in humans is about 1 to 2. Multiple fovea, specialized oil droplets that allow for ultrafine discrimination of spectral wavelengths, as well as a novel visual pigment with peak sensitivity to 300 to 390 nanometer wavelengths. In other words, this is a range that lies entirely within the ultraviolet field of the electromagnetic spectrum. Some biologists have demonstrated that among certain species, male-female distinctions in plumage are more prominent in the ultraviolet range, while other researchers theorize that the ability to perceive ultraviolet radiation may help birds detect sunlight reflected from the surfaces of food sources, such as fruits and berries. Similarly, though less thoroughly studied, butterflies possess compound eyes, or ommatidia, replete with no fewer than 5 visual pigments. It is believed that this system enhances the insect's ability to identify flowers, the nectar of which it relies on for nourishment. There's one order of animals, however, neither avian, that means birds, nor insect, whose visual system has proven so chromatically complex it evades even the deftest acrobatics of evolutionary logic. Stomapods, or more commonly mantis shrimps, are marine crustaceans indigenous mainly to the tropical seas of the Pacific and Indian Oceans. Like butterflies, the mantis shrimp's eye is composed of ommatidia, in this case arranged in 6 highly specialized parallel rows, while the retinal apparatuses of the within the retinal apparatuses of the first 4 rows, 8 separate visual pigments have been isolated in a 3-tier conformation. In rows 2 and 3, these tiers are divided by 4 additional, you start reading something like this and it doesn't really sound that important. So, I would say just kind of get through it. These tiers are divided by 4 additional visual pigments, 2 belonging to each row, which, like the oil droplets of the avian eye, function as color filters may allow the mantis shrimp to perceive multispectral images. Rows 5 and 6, meanwhile, are further specialized to detect geometric planes of polarized light and contain 3 final pigments, not found among the other 4 rows, for an uncanny sum of 16 unique visual pigments. Yeah, the reason I say it's like just about everything that you can see on the page here. Again, it's not a science test, I can't imagine that the details of that are going to be relevant. So, the author of passage B believes that most people know about the ability of our retinas to detect only 3 colors, primarily because of humans. I think it said, curiosity about eyesight or something. Where is passage B? Perhaps owing to an intrinsic interest in the way that we as people experience the visual world. So I guess that would be the innate curiosity of how human sight works, in other words. Okay? Which of the following correctly lists these species in order of least to greatest range of color perception? Least to greatest. Okay. So we can't put humans here. This is least to greatest? No. So humans at the greatest end of the range is wrong. Humans over here, that's fine. And then the mantis shrimp, they did make a point that the mantis shrimp are the best. So we've got to go with humans, butterflies, mantis, shrimp. As the word is used in line 56, discrimination most nearly means. Line 56. Okay, so we're talking about what here? These are birds. Okay. Especially the ultrafine discrimination of spectral wavelengths. Okay, so that means perception. In fact, that's one of the choices right here. Ultrafine intake, prejudice, contemplation, no. Okay. I don't mean to just gloss over that. It seems too obvious, but let's see the... Discrimination refers to the ability to perceive subtle differences. It is not choice A. It is not choice B. It's not choice D. Yeah. All right. It can reasonably be inferred from lines 71 to 74 that scientists, let's go to 71, 74. 71, 74. Oh, it's right up here. I think what we're getting at here is that scientists are kind of like puzzled about the complexity of mantis shrimp's visual system. They are excited to find that butterflies, no, it's not about butterflies, have been unable to discover an animal species, again with the butterfly, no, have had difficulty locating stomapods in the wild. Well, no, it doesn't say that. Cannot discern a likely reason with respect to reproductive success. Why do they need this extraordinary color perception? Yeah, that is exactly what it says here. Evolutionary logic. Okay, evolutionary logic. Evolution is with respect to reproductive success. So they can't find an explanation with respect to reproductive success for mantis shrimps having the visual system that they do. So let's do D. The passages suggest that which of the following is associated with an animal's need for a greater range of color perception. If the animal has more recent major evolutionary developments. No, I wouldn't say so. I don't remember seeing anything. No, I don't remember seeing anything about that. If the animal is herbivorous, carnivorous, or omnivorous, isn't that just like everybody? It can't be B. C, if the animal primarily lives and moves through water or air versus land. You know, that one kind of makes sense because everything that they talked about, birds, butterflies, and shrimp with particularly good eyesight, is in water or air. And so dogs and humans are on land. If the animal lives in warm equatorial, no, that never came up. The only thing I remember coming that's in there, I don't remember A or D being in there at all. It is air, water or air versus land. Right? Passage A and passage B, respectively, portray human sight relative to that of other species as all right. Well, passage B is portraying human sight as rather primitive. I mean, several examples of, birds, butterflies, and shrimp with better sight. Does B say human sight is useless? No. Does B say it is similar to other species? No. Does it say it's superior to other species? No. So really the only thing that works, I mean, even without looking at A, is, yeah, it does say advanced in A because it's just, comparing to dogs. So the only one that makes sense here is A. And final question. Another scientist makes this statement about sensation. Humans are far better able to understand the sensory experiences of animals that are structurally similar to us. We are far more limited when studying animals with alternate sensory mechanisms like fish that have electroreception, enabling them to detect electric fields. How would the authors of the two passages most likely respond to this statement? Well, let's look at some that look kind of unlikely here. D is wrong. Okay, D is wrong. Let's see. Give me a pen here. And because both authors indicate it's impossible to understand the nature of electroreception. Actually, electroreception was never even mentioned. The two authors find it generally useless to attempt to understand the sensory mechanisms of non-humans. No, that's not true. Passage B is all about sensory mechanisms of non-humans, and even passage A is talking about dogs. Optimism. This statement gives hope for human understanding of animals with extremely unusual sensory systems. Now see, I'm going to have to read the question again. We're far more limited when studying. Well, no, you know, it's what the scientist is saying is we're limited when studying animals that are not like us. So if we assume that animals are not going to become any more like us, or we're not going to become any more like animals, then we're not going to get any better understanding of the sensory systems. Or we have A, it says with agreement, since both authors use elements of human sensation as a basis of comparison of similar structures in other animals. Yes, well, A definitely does. B, let's see, B does, you know, birds comparing the visual systems to human visual systems, being able to see ultraviolet radiation, which humans are not. B is also talking about trichromacy of human eyes, so it's definitely A. All right, and that was the last question. All right, science, we'll do that in the next video. I hope you got something out of this one, and I'll see you next time.